Hello, everyone. I'm glad you can attend Attitude's weekly ADHD Experts webinar. I think all parents have had the following happen. You want to talk with your child about something important, or you just want to have a pleasant conversation about the movie he saw last night, and he ignores you. He doesn't even turn his head to look at you while you're talking. Or you approach your daughter, who seems upset about something, and she says, "Go away, I don't want to talk to you." And she heads off into another room, taking a text from a friend. Trying to connect with your child who doesn't want to connect with you is frustrating and can be heartbreaking. Parenting expert Kirk Martin will give us great tips and strategies to address the problem. But first, I'd like to just say that today's sponsor is Play Attention, the most comprehensive program available for both children and adults, designed to strengthen executive functions and self-regulation. As you know, executive functions are essential in controlling emotions and actions. Play Attention can customize a program to improve your child's executive functions and communication skills. Call 800-788-6786 and learn how Play Attention can customize a personal executive function program for you. They can even provide you with a personal executive function coach for free, unlimited support. Go to playattention.com, click on the hyperlink, a free professional consultation. Play Attention is offering Attitude webinar participants a $200 discount. Mention code ADDMAG0808, this should be on your screen, and you will receive 2 add-on games for free. Just so you know, Attitude webinar sponsors have no role in the selection of guest speakers, the speaker's presentation, or any other aspect of the webinar production. Now let me introduce Kirk Martin. He is the founder of Celebrate Calm, a website and program that he has taught to hundreds of parents and teachers in schools across the country. He also produces a wonderful podcast. It's inspiring and informative. You can link to that on his website. Kirk's strategies are simple and doable. They don't rely on consequences. His philosophy is that the nastiest power struggles are actually opportunities to build a closer, more trusting relationship with your child. He also subscribes to the belief that trust and connection precede obedience. I think that's very wise and smart and unconventional. Before we turn it over to Kirk, we wanted to conduct a little poll. What is your biggest concern about your child's behavior? Staying calm while your child explodes, fostering emotional regulation, teaching frustration management, or all of the above? While you're taking the poll, I'd like to mention a few things about our webinar interface. The widgets on your screen are completely resizable and movable. You can submit your questions through the Q&A widget. Kirk will answer as many questions as time allows. One important thing, this webinar is streamed through your computer and the internet, so it is bandwidth intensive. For the optimal webinar experience, it's best to close any programs that are running in the background. Now let's see the results of the poll. Okay, staying calm while your child explodes, 4%. Fostering emotional regulation, 13%. Teaching frustration management, 10.6. All of the above, 72. Yeah, I would have imagined all of the above would get the biggest percentage. So with all that being said, let me turn it over to Kirk.
Good. Thank you, Wayne. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time today to join us. We appreciate that. I know the kids that we're talking about, your kids, usually are kind of naturally defensive by nature, right? And a lot of them are in trouble a fair amount of the time. Sometimes executive function issues, impulse control, and they're in trouble. And I know when they get in trouble, you'll say, like, why did you do that? They're like, I don't know. And they kind of shut down. A lot of these kids feel very ashamed. So I know that communication can be very, very tough. So let's go through, I'm going to go through 5 different kind of ideas here that will hopefully help you out. And I'll try to do examples for kids of all ages, right? Whether they're toddlers or teens or tweens, everywhere in between. So number one slide we're going to talk about is building or rebuilding trust. And this is interesting because whenever parents come and talk to me, like at live workshops or whatever, they're like, how can I get my child to do X? And I always try to back up and say, well, it's got to begin with us, right? I was doing a phone consultation a couple weeks ago, and the parents were like, oh, our son, he's like always lying, and there's always a story, right? I know many of your kids are like that. There's always an excuse, always a story. We can't trust our son. And I said, do I have permission to be honest with you? And they said, sure. And I said, you know what the real issue even below that is that I don't think he can trust you, because every time he does bring something up, I bet that you lecture him a lot, right? Do you lecture? Do you shake your head at him all the time? And so what your son has learned is when he is honest and when he does communicate with you, oftentimes you're very quick with a lecture. And lecturing to me is micromanaging, right? And when we lecture too much, you know, what we're really saying is, I don't really think you're capable of doing this yourself. You need me to be on you all the time. I believe that too much talking, badgering, obviously we know yelling doesn't work with these kids, although I get it, right? Because you're asking them to do something simple and they won't do it, and you finally get frustrated and just yell at them. I get that. It's just it's not helpful and it's not good in the long run, right? So I do encourage you, begin working on yourself. Instead of spending so much time trying to change your child with ADD or ADHD, spend the time learning how to control yourself, because otherwise they won't come to you because they can't trust you. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. You know, if you want to do an apology, you can say, listen, I need to apologize. That I out of a good heart and good intentions, I think that all of my lecturing has sent this message that you're not capable of being successful. But the truth is you are. And I encourage you to begin using that phrase with your kids. Listen, I believe that you're capable of handling this yourself. You know what the hard part is? They haven't always had to do that because we always jump in and do things for them. And you're going to have to give them some space to fail, to wrestle with things, to figure things out on their own. And the truth is, our parents gave us that freedom, right? They weren't on us all the time. We figured stuff out. I think we owe our kids a certain amount of respect to say, I believe that you are capable. And I know you're going to struggle a little bit, but I know you're going to figure this out because you are capable and you're smart, right? And so I encourage you to do that. Now, this isn't stepping back and just saying, you know what, figure it out, I'm checking out. No, we're going to give kids lots and lots of tools. And we're not going to cover that so much in this podcast, but in other ones we've done with Attitude Magazine, we've done that of giving your kids lots of tools to succeed. I'll give you one other phrase that I didn't put on here, and I use this to do a parent boot camp where I go a little bit deeper with parents. And this is a very deep thing to talk to your kids about. And I encourage you, if you've got kids that are a little bit older, maybe sometime this week or this weekend, pull them aside and say, you know what, I was thinking about things. Does it feel like I've misjudged your motives? Or you can just say, I think I've misjudged your motives. Because we do that with strong-willed kids all the time. We'll say things like, well, if you would just apply yourself. And you know what they're thinking inside? I am. I'm working really hard at this. It's just really difficult for me. And I think if you want to connect with these kids and rebuild trust, acknowledging that sometimes we misjudge their motives because we don't really know what's going on underneath. I'll encourage you with this. Most of the outward behavior that you see exhibited in your kids is not the real issue. It's a cover-up for a lot of frustration. I'll guarantee you most of your kids that have that, because a lot of your ADD, ADHD kids also are diagnosed with ODD. Most of your ODD kids are not just oppositionally defiant. They're really frustrated kids. And I encourage you to get to the heart of it. You'll begin rebuilding trust. Okay, next slide. So, draw your child to you. That's really, and again, you're going to notice we're not even addressing the kids yet. It's really addressing what do we do to change in order to make our kids feel safe, in order to in order to feel safe opening up with us. So I'll give you a quick one. After school, now here's what we all do. After school, kids come home, or we pick them up from school, or we see them when we get home from work, and our first question, hey, how was school today? And most of your kids who don't like school are going to be, it stunk, right? Because here's what we're kind of asking. Hey, how did you do at that place where you're on red on the behavior chart all day and you don't have a lot of friends? How was it today, right? And they're naturally going to be defensive. Or if you have a teenager, I guarantee a middle school child, this is your conversation. Hey, how was school today? Fine. Got any homework? Nope. And you're not going to talk to them like for the rest of the night. So I'll give you a couple things to do after school. So for your older kids especially, here's a great way. After school, don't ask them about their school day. They will feel like they're being interrogated. And the truth is sometimes we are, because we have so much anxiety. I want to know that you did well and that you remembered to turn in your homework. And see, that's all my own anxiety. And so my anxiety will always push kids away from me. So here's a good one. They come home from school, pick them up, say, hey, guys, listen, I was thinking about this. Something happened to me today at the office, at the grocery store, driving here. And I'm curious, what would you do if you were in that situation? What would you do if you were me? Because just think, in school all day, kids don't really get asked what their opinions are. They get asked to regurgitate information and get told what to do all day. And so when they get home from school, what do? We kind of do the, hey, take off shoes, get your backpack, we're going to look at your homework folder, we're going to take out your homework, and I'm going to stand over you for 3 hours and badger you while you fight me over doing homework, right? That's kind of what we do. And instead, I want to relax them a little bit, right? And so asking about something that happened to me, or a larger political issue or something else, I don't care. Get them talking about something they're interested in. You could even bring up their favorite music, whatever it is, but ask them their opinion. When we train teachers, I try to train the teachers and say, listen, if you want these kids to open up, you've got to connect with them on a personal level. You can't talk to them just about academics all the time. It's not their area of strength. Ask them about something they're passionate about, and they will begin to open up. For your younger kids, by the way, when they get home, I love things like a treasure hunt, especially kids that have sensory issues of some kind. After school, hey, I hid your favorite Lego fire engine in the backyard. Or, bet you can't, because I love obstacle courses. They're great for kids with sensory needs. Bet you can't climb through your obstacle course because I hid a snack out there. Bet you can't find your snack and get back here through your obstacle course in less than 2.5 minutes. And now I got them doing something physical. It's outside. They've got fresh air. And it just breaks kind of that whole ick of the school day. So I just encourage you with that kind of conversation after school, and learning your teaching your child that they can come to you. One other quick one I have down there is this. If your child does open up, instead of jumping in and lecturing right away, right? Because as parents, we've got like 435 lectures all planned. We're like, oh, talk about friends. Let me give you a lecture on how to build good friendships. Instead, say this. Hey, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that with me. I've got some thoughts on that, about that. I've got to go get started on dinner. If you want to come get me later, I'd love to share my thoughts with you. And then you walk away. And what you're doing is inviting your child to come talk to you, rather than jumping on them right away with one more lecture. But you guys know this. Your kids don't listen to you. They don't, because you're parents. But they're awesome for other people, right? And so what I want is, when you walk away, you're inviting them. Now, sometimes your kids won't come right away because you've got to rebuild that trust. Just chill and relax and let it come. Now, I'll give you one warning. Here's how many of your kids are going to come to you later. Okay, Mom, what are your stupid ideas about that? And you know, for many of your kids, that's borderline respectful, so I'd answer their question. And you know what I mean by that. They came, they open up their hearts, and they ask for your opinion, and now you get to share, and they're ready to listen, but keep that dialogue going. Okay, third slide. enter into their world, we get so hyper-focused on parents about making sure that our kids are successful and responsible that in some ways we kind of forget that they're human beings, right? It's almost like I've been given responsibility for you and I'm going to make sure that you do everything that I need you to do so that you can be successful, right? And we get really hyper-focused on that. And we forget to really enjoy them and see them as anything as kind of like less than a pawn, to manipulate in some ways. Your kids are a little bit different, right? They just are. You wouldn't be here if they weren't. So I encourage you, some of your kids do weird things, right? Like how many of your kids hang upside down off the sofa? Well, instead of fighting it all the time, and by the way, it's a great way for your kids to do homework. When you talk about giving kids tools to succeed, it brings blood flow to the brain and it calms them down. It's a fantastic way. So someday go in and just let them do their homework upside down. It's really cool. But what I want you to do sometime is walk in and lay upside down next to them off the sofa and just say, it's interesting. I'm curious. Why do you like to hang upside down like this? And listen to your kids because they will give you insights into themselves. Well, when I'm upside down like this, for some reason, it just makes me feel really settled. Oh, well, now I just got an insight that the next time that my child's melting down, instead of telling them to calm down, I'll go in, lay upside down off the sofa, and invite them to join me. Because I guarantee you, you won't be screaming at each other when you're laying upside down off the sofa. It's going to calm them down, and now you're together, and I guarantee you're going to have an amazing discussion. But you did that because you entered into their world. Ask them, say, you know what? This is a little bit deeper thing too. You know what? I've never really understood you. You do these things that I don't understand, and so I've always assumed that you're just trying to get out of things, you're just doing things for some weird reason. And I haven't stopped to think that maybe you just like to look at the world in a different way. And I'm glad that you're different like that because it's changing me and I'm learning from you. Guarantee you start having those kind of conversations with your kids, they'll start talking to you. Listen to music they enjoy. We were doing this, I was doing another phone consultation with this mom. She's got a 15-year-old child. They haven't really talked in years. And so I said, one of the best ways to bond with teens and kids of all ages is to listen to music together. Now, the hard part about this is you're not going to like their music because they listen to horrible music. And so I said, does your son listen to rap? Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's what I want you to do, Mom. When you get home from work tonight, here's what I want you to do. While you're fixing dinner, I want you to blare some rap music. Find an artist that your son really likes and just blare that music. And I guarantee you, your son will be down in the kitchen asking you, Mom, what are you doing? And then you can occasionally do little white lies with your kids if it serves the purpose. And here's what I told her. I said, son, listen, on the way home from work today, I was listening to the radio, and they had an interview with this rap star, and he was really interesting because he came from this really tough background, and he was talking about his story, and I just wanted to listen because I wanted to see how he put his story into the music. It's not the kind of music that I really like, but I kind of get why he does it. And so the mom emailed me later that night and said, I had a 2-hour conversation with my son, but I wasn't badgering him to do things. I was just enjoying him, and I was listening to him. And instead of always getting on him, I was asking, so why do you like his music? What is it that you get out of it? So I just encourage you with that. And the third thing I have written down is creating agenda-free time. You've got to have time with your kids, some time when you just enjoy them, when there's no agenda. You're not trying to get something done. You're just simply enjoying them and what they're interested in. I can use this when some of you have trouble waking your kids up in the morning because they don't want to go to school, probably because they have anxiety. And so for anxiety, I always have teachers give kids a very specific job to do because that tends to help kids when they have something to look forward to. And I also try to get them out of bed doing a specific activity or an interest. So when my son Casey, and many of you are very kind, you email us and you'll talk to my son, and my son was just like your kids, and now he works with me because he gets all this stuff. But he got into blues music because many of your kids are very old souls. So I remember I'd go up to his room and I'd say, Casey, listen, I just downloaded some really cool John Lee Hooker stuff. It's really cool. If you get up, get ready for school, get downstairs and help me fix breakfast, we can play that. We'll play it loud, right? And that drew him to me. And then, see, once your kids are drawn to you and they begin to trust you, they'll begin to open up. But it's not going to happen in one day, right? So don't do these strategies for a day and then be like, I did that last night, he's not opening up. It takes time to rebuild trust. You guys know that from your marriages, right? It just takes time. So let me go to number 4. Changing the discipline, changing the way we discipline. And I've been using this example a lot at our live events. It is something that I first came to. We were developing this program called ADHD University. And it's all about teaching your kids how their brains are wired and how they see the world in different ways and how you have to discipline them in different ways because they don't respond to consequences. If they responded to consequences, nobody would be listening to this podcast because that's what we go to, punishment and consequences, and it just doesn't work. By the way, part of the reason a lot of programs don't work is it's because we're trying to approach it in a rational way. Well, if you do X, Y is your consequence. Well, most behavior isn't rational. If it was rational, jails would be empty, right? And most of what is happening with your kids isn't rational. It's something else going on underneath. So let me do this example. We're going to work in calming kids down, disciplining kids, but ultimately communication with your kids that I think you're going to find really helpful. So number 1 trigger for most dads is when I walk into a room, if I hear my child yelling at my wife, it makes me furious. So typically what happens is dad, and look, it can be both genders, right? It could be mom gets upset when yelling at dad. It could be both. But I'm a guy, and I'll just tell you my experience. So I would have always come in and say, Casey, how many times have I told you you don't talk to your mother like that? You keep talking to her like that, you're going to lose everything you own. In fact, you know what? Right now, go to your room, right, for the rest of the night, for the rest of the week, no food, no video games. Because I was a man, I would just give consequences I couldn't keep, right? And so I would walk away thinking, hey, I just stuck up for my wife. Good job here, Dad. You know what my wife was thinking? No, you didn't. You just ruined the whole night because now our son's crying, and I have to spend 2 hours calming him down upstairs, right, and telling him that your dad doesn't hate you just because he yells at you sometimes. And so it kind of made everything worse. So I learned a different way to handle this. And so let me go through the process. Big point. Before you address your child's behavior, you have to de-escalate the situation. You have to. You can't go in guns blazing. You know what? You're not going to talk like that. You can't do it. You have to de-escalate the situation first. So here are a couple examples. I bring some intensity to the situation, but my intensity in life comes to problem solving. It doesn't come at or toward the child. So I walk in, say the child's name is Jacob. I'm like, hey, Jacob. And he's in the midst of like having this throwdown with my wife, right? Or his mom. And so I walk in, I'm like, hey, Jacob, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to grab the football. When you're ready, if you want to come play catch with me, I'd love to do that with you. And I lead him, and I go outside. I may do this. Hey, Jacob, I'm telling you frustrated. Listen, I'm going to go into the living room, dump the Legos out. When you're ready, why don't you come in? I'll build a really cool spaceship with you. Couple things I'm doing here. My tone is even matter of fact. It's calm. I'm in control of myself. I'm leading the child. I'm not demanding that he stop anything. I'm giving him something else to do. Big point. Instead of, you need to calm down right now, young lady. That never works. What I want to do is give them something calming to do, whether it's playing catch, whatever it is, listening to music, in this case, building with Legos, something tactile. Instead of demanding something, I'm leading them. Instead of saying, do it right now, I always say, hey, when you're ready. In an emotional power struggle situation, the when you're ready almost releases them to do what's right. It's a very, very powerful little phrase to try. Now, it may take a few times for this to work, but I'm going to start doing it. And when that child finally comes outside or we're sitting down and building with Legos together, now we've calmed down. Now we've de-escalated, and now we can begin to communicate in a different way. And instead of just going right to, you know what, you need to go apologize to your mother, I start like this, a few phrases that I like to use. Listen, son, I know that you know that what you just did was wrong. And I love that phrase. I know you know that's wrong, because that's the opposite of, what were you thinking? How many times do I have to tell you? Those are shaming words. They really mean, why are you such an idiot? That's what it means, if we're honest with ourselves. What were you thinking? How many times do I have to tell you? Instead, I'm letting them know, look, I know you know that's wrong. Look, that's why your kids lie. We don't have time for that. But your kids lie because they're ashamed of their behavior and they feel helpless to change and they don't want a consequence, so they make stuff up. So I know you know that's wrong. Look, I also know, I know that you know talking to your mother like that always results in you losing all of your video games. And yet you did it anyway, so I'm curious. And I've got that phrase, I'm curious, on the screen because I want it to get deep down inside of you. I'm curious means I'm here to help you, not shame you. Most of our discipline with our kids, and partly why they won't talk to us, is because we're in a constant state of anxiety, a constant state of trying to change them, a constant state, in many ways, inadvertently, of shaming them. Because what were you thinking? How many times did I have to tell you? If you can't do simple things, how are you ever going to be successful in life? It's shame, shame, shame. And I'm curious means this. Look, you know what's wrong. You know you're going to lose all your stuff, so I'm curious because it doesn't make sense to me that you would do that. And yet you did it anyway. And so I'm curious because I want to help you. The reason that I want you to stop yelling at your mother, it's not for me and mom. I'm a grown adult. I can take it. It's for you. Because I know when you do those things, it doesn't feel good inside, and you lose all your stuff. So I'm curious. And I would encourage you, kids of every age, begin using that phrase of, I'm curious, because you're struggling with your homework right now. And I get it. It's hard sometimes, but I'm curious. What is the most difficult part? Are you overwhelmed right now? When you look at that worksheet and you see 30 problems of math on the math worksheet, does that so overwhelm you that you just want to crumple it up? Oh, if that's the case, now we can break it down into maybe pages with 10 on them or 5. I'm curious is a problem-solving device. It's an honest question of, I really want to understand what you're going through so that I can give you tools to help you. It is exactly what you want your spouse to ask you tonight when you're frustrated with the kids. You know what, if you just do this, it would be easy. No, you want them to say, honey, I can hear that you're frustrated. I'm curious. How can I help? What's the hardest part of this for you? So I just encourage you to do that. Just to wrap the story up, what it usually was with my son was he struggled at school and he was frustrated. So he would come home, he'd hold it together for the teachers at school, like many of your kids do, and then come home and unload on his mom. And that's what's happening. And so instead of giving a consequence in this situation, I'd say, Casey, you know, I totally get that because life is frustrating. I get the same thing at work and then I battle traffic. And so here's what I'm going to start doing when I get home from work and I'm frustrated. I'm going to come in and I'm going to sit down. I'm going to start doing push-ups. So here's your consequence. We're going to go inside, grab your backpack. We're going to go outside. We're going to come back in through the front door, and I will show you 2 or 3 different ways to handle your frustration so that tomorrow and the next day and the next day when you come home from school frustrated, you have some different tools so that you don't yell at mom so you don't lose all your stuff. And by the way, mom has different tools that she's not going to ask about your day, and she's going to give you a treasure hunt and do all these other things to draw you in. I hope that makes sense. Okay, final slide, and then we'll do some Q&A. So I entitled this because I want this to be what you remember most, which is to enjoy your child. Because I guarantee you somewhere along the way you have stopped enjoying your child because your child does struggle, and they do make things difficult at times. Some of you have the kids who are relentless arguers, right? And I would encourage you, I'm going to do next week I'm writing a newsletter. And again, if you're interested, it's all free stuff on our website to sign up, but I'm going to do it on the relentless arguer. We do that a lot in the ADHD University program. Look, here's why. Because I can't go through it all, but the relentless arguers, it's They're tinkering. How many of you have kids who like to tinker with things, like to take things apart? You know what arguing is? They're just tinkering with your brain. And they're trying to problem solve and get to something. They want to change your mind on things. And instead of getting all frustrated with them, I can say, I know what you're doing. You're just tinkering with my brain. And I love the fact that you're such a good thinker. Here's what you want right now. I said no, and I'm not going to give in. So you can keep tinkering with my brain, you keep manipulating, doing all those things. You're not going to get what you want. But if you want to use that really great brain of yours and you want to problem solve, oh, I bet we could come up with a really cool solution, right? So stop trying to fix your child. Stop trying to spend all of your time changing their behavior. And I encourage you to begin changing yourself instead. Start controlling your anxiety over your child's future, right? Stop expecting your child to be just like you. And that's a great thing that you can do. It's a little bit deeper strategy and approach, but it's letting your kids know, I release you. I release you from the expectation that you're supposed to do things the way that I do them because you're a different person. You're your own person, and I want to release you to be who you are made to be instead of making you in my image. Now, we could spend an hour and a half or literally 4 years on that because that's more about you and your own anxiety than it is about your child. So I'll end with this. I had written this down too. I don't want you to have as a goal, I want my kids to talk to me more often, right? If you see that as your goal, you're going to try to manipulate them. I want you to just enjoy your child again. Between now and Christmas, between now and New Year's, because things are slowing down, right, with school, it'll slow down, doing little Christmas parties. Relax, enjoy your child again, because this is what I know. I didn't like my son when he was little because he was so difficult. Now, I loved him. We all love our kids. But along the way, I stopped liking him. And your kids can sense that. That's why you have sibling issues, because they know you like and enjoy one sibling more than the other one, right? That's partly what's going on. A lot of resentment's built. So my goal for you is for the next few weeks to start doing things to simply enjoy your child again. And I think if you do these things, you will slowly begin to see your kids opening up to you, feeling safe to talk to you, and they're going to know, so you're not going to lecture anymore? Nope. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to give you tools because I know that you're capable. And it's beautiful how this all works together. So anyway, thank you for listening. I know we've got time for some Q&A, and I'm happy to help however I can.
Okay, yeah, lots of questions. What about a child or a young teen who might get physically aggressive with the parents?
Okay. So,
how do you deal with that?
Okay, physically aggressive kids. And again, if I can give a caveat, it's hard to do like in 3 minutes on a webinar. So, because there can be a lot of things. So I have to give that caveat of like, I can't figure all of that out. But I'd look for, again, I'd find out why is he being physically aggressive? What is the underlying frustration that is causing this? Many of your kids are physically aggressive. Here's a couple proactive things. What triggers in my mind is a lot of the physically aggressive kids are very frustrated kids, but also have sensory issues. So I want to find something physically that they can do so that they get some of that frustration out, whether it's through wrestling or swimming, gymnastics, the treasure hunt or the obstacle course. You know, a lot of physical energy, sometimes that can help with the physical part of it. But the aggressive part of it, what's really going on? What is the frustration underneath that would cause them to do that? And then you've got to apply a lot of the kind of de-escalating strategies. And again, that's kind of beyond the scope of this webinar, and I want to keep on that, on the kind of communication. But I think acknowledging, communication-wise, acknowledging, hey, I get you're frustrated. Leading your child to a calm place, right? Instead of just saying, you need to calm down now. There are hundreds of examples of leading them to do something that's calming to them, but you've got to learn. I think what I would focus on is what are some things that help de-escalate the situation in the moment because for most of our kids, once they do calm down, they're often contrite. They'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. So I'd say, you know, I don't want to plug our stuff. There are plenty of good places out there. Ross Greene wrote a great book on, I just lost it. It's one of the formative books we read, but on de-escalating kids. It's a great one. We do whole programs on de-escalating and calming situations, but I'd focus on that. I'd focus also, watch your body posture during that time. If you can lead to a place where you're sitting down, it is much harder to escalate when you are sitting down or even laying down. Just watch your body posture, watch your tone of voice as well. Anyway, I hope that helps in kind of a short little way. And again, look, if any of the people listening, if you want to email me directly, go to our website. You can do it, and I'm happy to help when I have a little bit longer form to do it than kind of a 3-minute answer. But we're always happy to help. But really,
well, we have a little time. We have a little time, so you can always, you know, answer as fully as you'd like. You had mentioned not badgering early on, and this one mom says, well, unless I badger my son, he won't put deodorant on, he won't brush his teeth, and he has braces, and he won't do this and that. And she just basically asks, if I don't badger or make sure he does these things, the basics, he doesn't do it at all. Suggestions?
Okay, good question. So a couple things. Totally get it. And sometimes you have to do those things. I'd rather, I think, if I can, find, I don't know how old the child is. As they get older, I like using other
13
adults.
years old.
Okay. I want to find, I want to find maybe an uncle, an older kind of mentor, an older kid who can come along, because sometimes our kids don't listen to us as parents, but they do listen to other people. Find someone if you can. Now, this isn't like an immediate thing that's going to happen overnight, but if you can find someone that he looks up to, because I'm a big fan of getting kids at 13 years old of age. I like the two words we use are mission and mentor. I like to find a larger mission, getting these kids doing something they're really good at doing, using their gifts and talents outside the home, service projects, helping other people. And see how this works together. I like to get them doing something like a larger mission because it's very motivating for them. It builds confidence. It gets them out of the home. And then also a mentor of some kind. And I just had what popped in my head is, let's say your 13-year-old son is very good at fixing stuff or doing things, and there's like an older couple down the street. And the older couple can't like climb on ladders anymore and fix stuff. But what if one day, a couple days out of the week, your child goes down, helps the Hendersons, because most of your kids, most of your ADD, ADHD kids, as challenging as they can be, they all have big hearts. They're very sensitive kids in many ways. And so what if a couple days a week he went down and helped Mr. and Mrs. Henderson fix stuff, change their light bulbs, and do that? I guarantee you that if Mr. and Mrs. Henderson say, listen, Jordan, look, dude, your breath. Like, we want it, like, you're a great kid. We love having you here. Dude, you stink. Like, start wearing your deodorant, man. There's something about it coming from someone else other than your mommy or daddy. It just makes a difference. I remember, look, I was 16 and my parents were divorced. My dad wasn't around, and I remember the kid's name. It was in 11th grade. His name was Scott Patry, and he looked at me one day, and I even remember it was in history class, and this is how formative this was for me. We were in history class, and it was discussing World War II and the Nazis. I remember the day, and he looked at me and he said, man, Kirk, you've got a lot of peach fuzz. Don't you know how to shave? And the truth is, I just was so unaware. And I didn't have anybody, and I remember going home and asking my older brother and saying, can you teach me how to shave? And it was because it came from someone else that I received it. If you want, for reminding your kids to do things, look, we all do those picture charts and things. He's 13, so it's a little bit lame. I'm not always a big fan of those things, but I do tend to like this approach as well, besides getting other people to do it, is saying, okay, here's the 3 things I'm asking for you every morning, okay? You got to brush your teeth, you got to floss, you got to put on deodorant, right? By the way, some of these things will work themselves out. some things like the deodorant, when he gets interested in girls and a girl looks at him and says, "You smell." I know that's harsh, but it's the way the world works. And it worked for my son very well. But sometimes I'll do a thing with kids, like with morning routine of saying, look, here are the 3 things that have to be done every morning. Just 3 things, all I want done. School bus comes at 7:18. If you get your 3 things done, put on deodorant, brush your teeth, and do X. If you do that and you're done with that by 7:11, we've got 7 minutes. I'll do whatever you want, because here's connection. If you want to show me YouTube videos, which I despise more than anything in this world, I will patiently watch for 7 minutes, whatever you want to show me, because I'm interested in the connection. And Wayne, you mentioned that before, connection before compliance. Work on those things. I'll try to mention in some newsletters and other things, some other things for getting kids to remember things. Sometimes I make things a challenge for kids. Sometimes I make things more difficult. So brushing his teeth out on the deck in the morning and then spitting the toothpaste off the deck. And he's 13, not sure if that's going to work. I think finding an older kid or someone else will help much better with that. Oh, by the way, let me address this. I don't want you doing the endless badgering. Part of it is, and we've got to be honest about this, part of the reason kids only listen when we badger is because that's what we've done for so long. And I may pull your 13-year-old aside, or kid of any age, and say, listen, you don't want your mommy walking down the hallway with you at school. I've done a good job. I believe you're capable of being successful. I'm going to step back, because you're 13 now. You're 10 now. You're 16. I want you to own your choices. I am not going to lecture anymore. I'm not. My job is to give you tools. I will encourage you. I'll notice when you're doing things well. I'll help you with as many tools as you need. But from now, I'm resigning from that job, and I want you to begin to own your own choices. You will find, I'll give you one more challenge, sometimes when you back off, we call it stepping back. When I step back, it gives the kids space to step up. Let's give them some space to do what you want him to do, but he may just do it in a weird way, right? But let's try that between now and Christmas, see if we can get him stepping up.
This mom is sort of confused because she's trying to use praise successfully with her son, but her son, in terms of opening up communication between her and her son, and she says, my son doesn't often recall all of the times we praise him and give him good consequences, but excuse me, but tends to say, you're always mad at me, or you're always pointing out what I do wrong. She wants to know how to use praise successfully in order to open up communication. It seems like it's backfiring for her. So I thought maybe you could address that.
It's a great question. So a few things. Remember that old thing of, like, you remember for every one negative thing you say, it takes 10 things to praise. I'd encourage you to, we have to watch how often we communicate disapproval in subtle ways. I used to do it all the time with my son. He'd walk into the room, and I would just be shaking my head in this little tiny shake of my head. That was devastating to me, to him. I'd encourage you to be honest about yourself, and I applaud you for doing the praise and affirmation. Really, really important. I applaud you. I'd encourage you just be honest, and it may be that mom is doing it more, but dad isn't. And I will tell you, it is a devastating thing because these kids just kind of pick up on the negativity wherever they go, and they're really, really sensitive to it. I guarantee you, many of your kids the first day of school came home and said, I don't like that teacher. She doesn't like me. She's mean. And all they picked up on was something subtle in even in the tone of voice. Because when I get into this tone of voice, is kind of a demeaning phrase. I'm not happy with what you're doing. And that's why we talk a lot about even matter-of-fact tone is really, really important. So I'd encourage you, make sure that what he's saying isn't true. Because I had a guy, we were in Dallas, we did this parent boot camp thing, I had this older guy. He's 60. I'm older. I'm 52. He's 60. His son was older, and he said he remembers the day his son came home and said, Dad, how come you only notice when I do things wrong, but not when I do things well? So just watch that. So a couple things on praise. I would go very low key. I don't do overt praise with these kids because here's what it sounds like. Oh, buddy, you did such a good job. And you know what it sounds like? You know what? We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you just did, so we're going to celebrate. And it sounds fake, sounds condescending. And here's the other thing. It puts pressure on them because what they're feeling is, no, don't praise me because now you're going to expect me to always make good decisions and I can't. So when I praise, it sounds like this. Hey, Jacob, nice job today. Saw what you did, saw how you helped your mother out with that. It's cool. Hey, Jacob, you know what was cool? Your sister was irritating you, and instead of lashing out at her, you walked away. And then I give a fist bump. That's how we do it in this home. That shows me you're mature, right? It's kind of a very low key. It's a statement of facts because many of your kids will reject your praise. So I'm just coming in very low key and saying, hey, that was a good choice. I love how you do that. You know what? When you argue with me, you know what it tells me? You've got really good critical thinking skills, and you're taking apart my arguments just like you took apart that toilet. And what I know is that's a great process in your brain, and that's going to make you successful one day. I'm excited to see you use that. And then you walk away. And I do. I do a lot of affirming for these kids, but let's go very low-key. Oh, by the way, you mentioned telling him. Try writing notes. I guarantee everybody in here loves when you get a written note from another person and you read it again and again and again. I keep notes all the time in a drawer, and when I'm going through something, or I'm down or whatever, I run across them. It's so nice to open it up and say, Kirk, you've done this, and I really appreciate you. So written notes for kids, don't write a long one, just 3 or 4 sentences at the most. Put it under their pillow sometimes. That's a great one. I want everybody to do that this week. One night, put a little note, put it it doesn't have to be anything fancy, in a little envelope. Put it underneath your child's bed or have it waiting for them when they wake up in the morning outside their door on the floor, and let them wake up and have the first thing they see or last thing they see at the end of the night be, here's why I'm proud of you. So glad you're my son. My son's 25. I still at times. So the other night I did, because my son speaks German because he's weird, and he taught himself. So I sent him a little note, and I looked up, how do you say, I'm proud of you, I'm glad you're my son. I sent that to him in German. He's like, Dad, that meant a lot to me. And he's 25, right? So anyway, I'd encourage you to do that. Everybody.
Yeah, that's an excellent tool. Really very good. It is amazing what notes can do for your mood.
Yes.
One mom is saying, I would really love it if we can start talking about how to deal with the overwhelming barrier of screens, computer phones, etc., getting in the way of communication with the rest of the family. I have a 14-year-old girl, and this is a problem. So we were talking about communication, and they're communicating with their friends, but not the rest of the family. It's as if they're cut off. So any suggestions on how to tackle this?
Okay. Do we have another hour? It's hard, and again, I apologize. A couple things popped into mind. I always acknowledge with teenagers that, because we do this a lot of it's not that important. You need to be engaged in this. But staying in touch with their friends is important, right? It is, and so I like to acknowledge that. I think you're going to have to, I was just talking with a friend about this, and he's like, I get asked to speak about screens, and I was like, yeah, I know I do too, but nobody really wants to do what you really have to do, which is, in some ways, you just have to be really rigid with it and say, at the dinner table, no screens ever. We can start there, right? At the dinner table, no screens. That includes Dad. Nobody gets screens. And we can sit there and look at each other and be awkward, but no screens. And you're just going to have to step up and go through the pain of, Now, the girl on her screens, this is probably sitting in the living room or you're in the car. there's a certain amount of it I may give her. Look, this is completely up to you. You have every right to go Amish on your kids and just cut off electricity, no screens whatsoever, take away the phone. You've got every right, and I've got no problem with taking phones away from kids. Don't buy into, well, they need it for safety. No, they don't. That's just an excuse. They don't. But if you want a middle ground here, it could be, hey, honey, I know that staying in touch with your friends is really important to you, and I want you to have time to do that. So between the hours of X and Y, or while we're driving to X, or while, go ahead, text, do that. But during these other times, the phone goes away. And if the phone doesn't go away, I get it, and it's done. I would put some strong boundaries on it and have a few times during the day when you can connect. If I can tell you a quick thing that we've done with a lot of kids, and it doesn't always work, but it's a beautiful example. So a lot of kids, girls, boys, all teenagers, they want to stay up till midnight texting with their friends. But you don't want that because you're a good parent. So you're the one weird parent who says, no, phones have to be, all phones on the kitchen counter by 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., done. Well, now your child's going into school the next day, and they just missed 2 hours of conversation because of all the parents who won't do the right thing and allow the kids to text till midnight. Well, your child feels left out. So rather than just saying, you know what, it's not that important, well, it is important to them, I say, I totally get staying connected with friends is really important. In our home, because we're good parents, we are saying you will never, ever, ever be able to stay up till midnight and text with your friends, because if I did that, I'd be a horrible parent. So 10 o'clock, so you're going to miss out. Here's what your goal is. It's to be connected to your friends. I want you to pick a couple of those good girlfriends that you have. This is for a daughter. A couple good friends, and on Friday or Saturday night, we will make our home the cool place to be. And you can bring your friends over, and we'll have movies. We'll do whatever you want. You can even be a little bit mischievous. I don't care, but we're not doing screenings. And here's what we've had success with, because I did this with my son. A couple girls come over, and you're in the kitchen. You say, hey, girls, could you help me with something? Because there's this nursing home retirement center down the road, and I just wanted to bake some things. There's like some lonely old people. And if you guys wouldn't mind helping me just for a few minutes, if you could help me cook and bake some stuff. I was going to take it to them later. If you guys could help me out with that, I'd appreciate it. And you get a couple girls. You get 3 girls standing around, and you begin asking them questions. And you begin doing what we were talking about before, which is connecting about things they're interested in. Kids are hungry for adult communication, to be treated like adults. And they're hungry for an adult to listen to them. And here's what's been happening when we've done this with people. So the girls end up talking because there's a mom or a dad who's actually asking them questions about themselves. And then they get through cooking and like, hey, would you guys want to go down and help me out deliver these cookies? And you know what happens? They go down, and these teenage girls who are hungry for connection but don't know how to get it other than posting pictures on Instagram are now confronted with live human beings, these older women and men who are filled with life's wisdom, who say, we so love you being here. Your cookies are so good. Will you sit and talk to us? And all of this makes you cry thinking of it. Now they're getting human connection. Someone wants them. Someone needs them. Someone wants them to be there. And I guarantee you, when you start doing stuff like this, it will start to get your kids off of screens, because now you're able to say, you want to go feed the homeless? Well, not really. But once they connect with some really interesting homeless people and feel needed in life, posting pictures on Instagram just doesn't compare with the fact that there's this old lady that likes the way I sing or is interested in me. So anyway, I encourage you with that. But again, that's all about connecting with your kids and showing them a different way to do it.
Mm-hmm. A mom is asking, when there are several questions about being spoken to disrespectfully. This particular mom, I just wondered what your strategy might be. She says, when my son is speaking disrespectfully to me, and my husband is not there to defend me or pull him away to talk to him, how do you suggest I, as a mom, address the disrespect?
Okay.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I'll give you 2. Let me make quick notes so I don't forget. 3 chores, me too. Okay, 2 things. One is I would like you to try this. It's a very mature approach, and it's tough. I want to figure out, I'm not going to make an excuse for them. It's wrong for kids to speak disrespectfully. I'm a grown-up, and here's what I finally came to with my son. My son would come to me with that tone in his voice and start speaking disrespectfully. And look, you've got every right to say, if you're not going to talk to me, if you're going to talk to me like this, go to your room for the rest of your life, and nothing will really change. So I remember looking at him one day and saying, Casey, look, here's what I know. Every time you speak to me in that voice, in that tone, it tells me you're anxious, you're frustrated, or you're hungry. So you've got 2 options right now. You may continue to talk to me like that if you want, but the only thing that's going to happen is you're just going to end up in your room and losing all your stuff, and I don't think you want that to happen. Or if you want to come sit with me, if you want to come build with Legos, if you want to come help me, look, moms, you're busy. If you want to come help me stir the soup, if you want to come help me while I fix dinner, if you want to come help me fold clothes, and I fold the clothes in our home. I do laundry, and I would use that with Casey. If you want to come talk to me, look, I'd love to listen to you and figure out why are you talking to me like that, because I'm curious, because you know that doing that never leads to anything good. So I want to figure out, are you anxious about something? Are you frustrated that something happened at school? Or are you just hungry? Because if you're hungry, I'll give you something to eat. And that's a very mature way of not taking it personally and looking at the child instead of reacting to him, saying, usually when my child speaks disrespectfully, now it could be they're disrespectful because you won't let them have what they want, right? Which again is the relentless arguer example of like, dude, I know what you want. I'm not going to say yes to you. So you can continue to badger me. You can call me names. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose your stuff, and I know you don't want that. So why don't we figure out a different way that we can handle this? But that takes a lot of work on your part to de-escalate. But I'm not going to let you off the hook in this sense. You and I are grown adults. We're talking about 14, 16-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids who don't even know what they're doing, right? So I'd encourage you with that to take that approach. But here, if you want to do the tough approach, is in our curriculum, if you ever listen to our CDs or whatever, what you'll hear is we don't talk about making a child respect you, because I can't control the behavior of another human being. I can't make a child respect me. But what I can do is demonstrate self-respect. So if a child's talking to me disrespectfully, and I did this with my son as well, and with all the kids we worked with, look, you can talk to me like that if you want. Here's what I know. I run 2 services in this home, a meal service and a taxi service. I feed you and I take you places. If you think that you're going to talk to me like that, and then I'm going to turn around and take you to some extracurricular activity, right, and battle traffic, I pay a lot of money for that thing. If you think I'm going to do that and take all that time, you got another thing coming to you. See, that's self-respect, because what that says is I can't control the way you talk to me, but I can always control what my response to that is. And I can work that both ways, right? Look, Casey, if you're going to talk to me like that, things aren't going to work well for you. And I'm not going to take you to soccer practice. It's not going to happen. You can be upset all you want, right? But if you want to learn to speak respectfully and disagree with me and problem solve, I'm all over that. So why don't we go, you can help me fix dinner, and we'll talk about a different way to handle that. But anyway, you have to de-escalate the situation. And the beautiful thing is, what I'm communicating to the child is, I don't think the disrespectful talk is the real issue. I think it's that you're frustrated or overwhelmed, and so you're taking it out on me. That's not working anymore. So let me show you a different way to deal with your frustration, a different way to handle feeling overwhelmed so that you don't lose all your stuff. Anyway, it's a hard thing, but again, that comes back more to me than it does to the child.
Yeah, I like that last bit of advice a lot. That's very
I do too.
Mature. Yeah, I do.
It's hard. Wayne, I think what you mentioned is these kids are gifts because they're going to cause you to really grow up, right, and realize, like, man, I've got to really work on myself inside so that when this child comes to me after school frustrated and overwhelmed, I'm the safe place to come to, and I've got tools to show them how to deal with that. And it's a beautiful thing that will last you the rest of your life.
Right. Well, Kirk, I think the hour is up. Everyone had lots of great questions. You had great insights. It's an important topic to everyone. Hopefully we will have you back, but there's got to be a part 2 maybe, because I think this has been so constructive for everyone. So hopefully you'll come back and we'll continue maybe the conversation on the same topic. Do a part 2. I don't know.
I would love that anytime. Feel free to email me. You do. I think it's on the website. It's Kirk, K-I-R-K, @celebratecalling.com. I'll be happy to help you out with stuff. So, but thank you for hosting this. You guys are great hosts and do good work, so thank you.
Thanks again for being here. And once again, today's webinar sponsor is Play Attention, the most comprehensive program available for both children and adults, designed to strengthen executive functions and self-regulation. Play Attention can customize a program to improve your child's executive functions and communication skills. Call 800-788-6786 and learn how Play Attention can customize a plan for you. They can provide you with a personal executive function coach for free unlimited support. Once again, the website would be playattention.com, and you click on the hyperlink or on our screen, free professional consultation. Play Attention is offering webinar participants a $200 discount. Mention the code ADDMAG0808 and you'll receive 2 add-on games for free. And once again, on January 10th, ADHD expert James Greenblatt will talk about the importance of trace minerals in plant extracts and how it can improve ADHD symptoms in both children and adults. So we'll see you then, and have a great day, everyone.